Definitely was not expecting Antonio Brown to get traded to the Raiders. I definitely thought that he'd probably be going to um, a contender. Um, but let's go ahead and look at this from the point of view of the Raiders and seeing what did they get in the Pro Bowler Antonio Brown. So last season he had 1,297 yards. He had 104 receptions. He averaged 86.5 yards per game, and he had a catch percentage of 61.9%. Now, a lot of the times he was getting doubled. Um, he does have Juju to take off some of that pressure off of him, but with him being the primary option, these stats are just unbelievable. In 2017, he had 1,533 yards, 100 receptions. In 2016, he had 1,284 yards, 106 receptions. In 2015, he had 1,834 yards and 136 receptions. And that is just insane. In 2014, he had 129 receptions and 1,698 yards. Moving on to his playoff stats. Let me go ahead and pull these up real quick. In 2016, he had 309 yards in 3 games with 18 receptions. 2015, in 1 game, he had 119 yards, 7 receptions. 2017, he had 132 yards, 7 receptions. Um, so we know AB is going to show up. My thing with this trade is if we look back at the 2018 NFL offensive line rankings at the end of week 17, the Steelers had the best offensive line according to Pro Football Focus. The best offensive line. And moving on to the Raiders had the 28th best offensive line. So that is a huge difference as far as how much time your quarterback is going to have to get the ball out to Antonio Brown. Is he going to have enough time to run these deep routes, or everything just going to have to be a slant or something underneath because they don't have enough time to get him the ball? Now, obviously, I'm going to assume that the Raiders are going to address the offensive line in the draft and during this offseason. But even if they pick up solid people, you don't really know what the offensive line is going to be until you're actually into the season. To me, offensive line, you need the talent, but you also need chemistry as well. With anything, you need chemistry, but offensive line chemistry is very important. And with the Raiders being ranked the number 28 best offensive line, that's going to be a huge problem for the Raiders and Antonio Brown. Um, but one thing that is, or another thing that's a plus for Antonio Brown and the Raiders is that they have a solid quarterback. Um, Derek Carr is not, you know, I wouldn't say he's tier one or tier two quarterback, but he's not bad. Um, in his seasons with the Raiders, 2014 he had 21 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. 2015, which is one of his best seasons, he had 32 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. 2016, which was another good season, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. 2017, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. In 2018, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So just based off his stats, he's shown that he can be a pretty solid decision maker. Um, Now, yards per attempt for his career, he's only averaging 6.7 yards. But with a playmaker like Antonio Brown, and if they get some more playmakers around Derek Carr. You don't really need to throw the ball too deep down the field. You really just want to get the ball into your playmaker's hand and just let them do the work for you. So this is definitely interesting. Not interesting. This is a great pickup for the Raiders. They do have a quarterback. They do have a good wide receiver. I just think they need to fix up that offensive line, fix up that defense a little bit, get some playmakers on there on both sides of the field, and we'll see what happens, man. It's definitely, this is one thing I love about the NFL. Even though people expect the Patriots to go every year just because they have a great coach, great quarterback, what the NFL does is there's so much parity. One year you can have something like this. You can have top 3 wide receiver on a contender just jump to a different team and possibly make that team. Not right now, they're not a contender, but depending on what they do in the offseason and with their free agent signings and draft, they could be a threat to some teams in the playoffs.